Hello to you again. I'm Jesse R. Johnson. This is part 2 of 2 parts. Please go to part 1. Part 2 will begin where part 1 left off. When you feel, you usually feel in limitation, and you typically become that limitation. No matter what arises, you take on that limitation. And because you chronically take on a limitation in every moment, over time you begin to get the sense that you are unhappy, that you are obstructed, and your search to become happy becomes intensified. Some people keep looking for something more, something else, something in the conventional round, some solution that still may hold out to them the possibility of being completely free and happy. But some people eventually get the lesson of life, or perhaps by coming into the company of a spiritual adept. Through consideration, they may come to the conclusion finally that they are chronically unhappy, and not because manifest existence is unhappy. They discover eventually that they are unhappy because they are being unhappy. They are doing the thing that is causing the unhappiness, and for no other reason whatsoever. Those who get the lesson of life, at least to some degree, may then go and find a spiritual adept. Others may at least become frustrated enough that they begin to look for a spiritual adept, and eventually they may get this lesson in the spiritual adept's company. In any case, you must get this lesson. You must get this lesson and make this discovery. If you are going to enter into the stream of true spiritual life, and what you must discover once you get this lesson and once you find a source of spiritual transmission, is that you are precisely that which you are suffering. You are that which you are suffering. You are not merely being it as an entity who is suffering. You are not separate from the suffering. You are the suffering, but you are active as that suffering. This action is primarily a limitation on feeling, and this limitation on feeling may be observed in relation to everything, absolutely everything, in the moment of any kind of functional activity, and in any circumstance, any relationship, any incident. Even now, if you observe yourself, you are not feeling without obstruction. You are feeling the limit that is apparent. Isn't it obvious to you that you are feeling short, not feeling fully, but feeling a limit based on whatever you are noticing, or however it impresses you, or however you are interpreting it in this moment? You will notice, if you observe yourself, that even now, in a circumstance that you presumably regard to be pleasant, happy, not troubled, with no heavy threats, even in this circumstance, you are feeling limited. You are feeling unhappy. In fact, not unhappy in the sense that you are in some kind of negative emotional state, but what I suggest that you observe is that you are not infinitely happy, not feeling without obstruction. If you are not feeling without obstruction, then you are feeling limited or contracting upon the force of feeling, the force of being, and you are therefore being actively unhappy. You are in fact doing this. It is not simply something that is happening to you externally. This limit on feeling that you all have been noticing during this consideration is what I'm pointing to with such language as narciss, as the self-contraction, unhappiness, and so on. That fundamental limit that you can observe in your own case in any moment is a limitation on feeling, an obstruction of feeling, which is demonstrated in every form of your functional life. This limit on feeling that you can observe in any moment in yourself, of yourself, if you will grant attention to it through consideration, is otherwise demonstrated as all kinds of habits of mind, states of psyche, tendencies toward emotional reactivities, tendencies of desire, habits and rituals in relations to other people, self-indulgence, seeking of every kind, and personality and character games. All of that is built on this one specimen, this one incident, this one state, which is continuous, and that chronic state of unhappiness is transferred to the whole world. You all know that in the world of psychiatry, people speak of transference. Patients of psychiatrists typically project onto their psychiatrist feelings, emotional reactions, and patterns that they otherwise tend to live out with individuals in their private lives, such as parents, and in effect they make the psychiatrist the same person that they are reacting to in their daily living. In the common world also, there is a primary form of transference that everyone engages in. You do not have to be a patient of a psychiatrist to be doing it. All people transfer or superimpose upon others and upon the whole world the disease that they are suffering, because they themselves are the suffering. That disease colors the whole world, colors relationships, causes people to act and feel and think in various ways in relations to others. The infantile personality who develops the Oedipal conflict is actually transferring to or projecting upon their own parents an emotional state, a feeling state of limitation. The child is interpreting what is taking place between the parents as a literal betrayal of him or her. Generally, at any rate, the parents are just living out their lives together and loving this little child, but the child thinks that the parents are involved in some other form of betrayal, and the sense of betrayal is so profound that it affects the child for the rest of his or her life. That is an example of transference, but so is everything else that people do. Everyone transfers upon the world, superimposes upon the world and all relations a state for which they themselves are responsible, a state that originates in themselves, not in the world. You could say then that the classical Buddhist interpretation of conditional reality or the conditional universe is a form of transference. Life is suffering. Existence is suffering. How did existence get to be suffering, which is not true? How did manifest existence, the whole universe, get to be suffering? It's not. It is you that is the suffering, as if you had actually examined everything and come to this conclusion You did not, because the conclusion is incorrect. Even if such a form of thinking has been examined a great deal, the person is always looking at all that through the color of his or her own disease and transference of that disease to the world. He or she starts operating on the world itself, or the apparently objective phenomena of the body-mind, struggling to eliminate the phenomena of the world as they were themselves some sort of evil. The notion of sin in the Judeo-Christian tradition is a similar example of transference, whereby human unhappiness becomes associated with the idea of an objective historical and historical cause. It is an old tale, and what they did in some other place with some so-called fantasy god, or by birth, because of your own character, because of the great universal demise, you are objectively caused to be unhappy. Therefore, you must be objectively caused to go to some other place that's wonderful, or be happy, or to be spiritually alive. Therefore, you are the suffering, and you are the cause of that suffering, not the external world. You are projecting onto the world your own miseries, your own madnesses, and it in fact affects every other individual about you. I want to thank everyone for listening and watching, and have a very good day. Share this video and stay well.